So I was just checking in at the center bench real quick, and we're making something called a color cup or a stuffed cup, where basically we are going to blow this bubble out into a cup with straight walls and a rounded bottom, and then we'll eventually stuff more glass inside of it later on. But yeah, you could think of this as basically a little bit of prep work, but we are going to see some actual glass blowing. So at the bench, we're already starting to blow this out using this pad of folded up newspaper to guide which way it blows out as somebody blows into the end of the pipe. Glass blowing is very team oriented. It's hard to blow glass on your own. So we've done a couple of important things that I wanted to point out. We attached a pipe to the end of the bubble, just as you guys were coming in, and then we broke the entire piece off of the first pipe that it was on. And this is basically just to flip the orientation or get access to the other side of the piece. And that's how we were able to start actually opening this side up. So we're opening it up fully, straight walls to get that cup shape. And eventually we're going to be putting it inside of this box right here in the front, which is why they turned it on not too long ago, preheating it to about 900 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And I would say this is arguably one of the most important parts of the processes that you'll see in the hot shop today up on the screen right now. The screen is a really good thing to pay attention to because there are parts of the hot shop that we can't see as easily. So over on the left side, our visiting artist himself, again, Lonnie Holley, sitting down and is working with a powdered colored glass. And usually when we're working with cool glass, like room temperature like this, the color that you see is the color that you get. So this is going to be a green color glass that he's working with right here. And the way that we would use a powdered colored glass for these pieces in particular, yesterday we were seeing them take a molten bubble of glass and then roll it over top of the powder to pick it up on the outside of our piece. And I did mention to a couple of you guys that different colors come from different metals, minerals, and oxides. One really good example I bring up that will relate to green is the Statue of Liberty is made of copper. And when copper reacts with oxygen, it oxidizes and it turns that greenish bluish color. And if we put that greenish bluish copper oxide into glass, we get a blue-green glass. It's that simple. Yeah, exactly. This is filled with up to 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass at a time. And this is all clear glass, which is why it's important that we have the powdered colored glass and other things, because we always start with clear. Yeah, usually the way that we add color is, let me see if I have an example. Oh, right here. These bars of colored glass, called Color Bar, very creative name. We basically just take chunks of this, we attach it to the end of a pipe, and we melt it down and then layer it on top of a bubble, which is what we did for this piece that we just, the cup that we made. Yeah, you can see this layer of color in the image on the screen. Yeah, so a piece will appear as if it's all made from, well, for this piece in particular, like a yellow colored glass. But if you look at the cross section, it's just a thin layer of color. Thank you. So the piece we were working on earlier actually is inside of this box right here. And this is called the garage. It sits at just about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very hot. It's actually cold for glass, though. It's completely solid in there. So you guys came in at a good time because they're actually about to come into the front right here and use this box right in front of you guys. This is it's a pickup box, we call it, or a little annealer. So basically we heat this up to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. We have a cup of glass inside of it like this, and we're going to stuff this bubble of glass inside. So now that we've seen the glass, I'll talk about the people that we have on the floor as well. So we have a visiting artist today. His name is Lonnie Holley, and he's the one in the front, actually sitting down here. And he is here for a full week residency. We're working on one of his pieces right now, the first piece of the day. And we've just picked up a colored cup of glass. Basically, the idea behind this is that we have the color really close to the surface of the finished piece. And eventually, we're going to pick up an interesting pattern that Lonnie himself laid out over on that table there. Now, Lonnie is creating a lot of improvisational art up in the front right here, using a lot of found objects. And I want to point out something interesting. He's actually a music artist as well, so he had a concert in Seattle last night. And the rest of the people we have on the floor, they are helping bring Lonnie's designs to life, basically. And welcome into the hot shop, you guys. You came in just as I was introducing our visiting artist. His name is Lonnie Holley, and he's the one in the front. He's been sitting here working on the artwork that you see on the table right here. We're going to be creating something in the hot shop using a pattern that he has laid out over here on this metal table in the back. And we'll be able to get a little bit of a better view of it in just a moment. But could we have Lonnie's artwork on the screen, please? Thank you. So this slideshow that was playing just when you guys were coming in was just some previous works and inspirational pieces or pictures that Lonnie gave to us to show off. And we are going to be having a full week residency of Lonnie making various pieces of glass in the hot shop, all the way through Sunday. And I've been making sure to point out that he's going to be sitting up in the front working with found objects and making these improvisational sculptures and pieces. And we're using copper wire to do this, which is pretty malleable and soft. And something that I think is really interesting is this can technically be incorporated in glass as well. Copper and gold and silver are incorporated in glass. They're soft enough and have kind of the right conductivity for heat to be able to go through it and for it to be used for a piece of glass without breaking the glass. If we were to use something like steel in a glass sculpture, then it would start to crack and break the glass apart as the glass cools down because it shrinks around the metal. So just kind of interesting physics, interesting chemistry. And we'll see how this piece plays out. They were working on something similar yesterday. Oh yeah, and our visiting artist, he's got his own studio at home over in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's visiting from quite a distance. So that pattern that we just picked up, you can still see it on the screen, again on that metal table. This was prepared earlier, and this is a powdered colored glass, just crushed pretty fine. And this is just one of many ways to apply color to our piece, but basically we just sprinkle it on the table and then we create empty spaces by brushing the glass away. So this is the actual blowing part of the glass blowing process. We're guiding which way the bubble blows out using this pad of newspaper. And then we'll have someone blowing into the end of the pipe, expanding the glass like a balloon. And then with this wooden paddle, we're actually not using this to touch the glass at all at the moment. We're just kind of shielding the artist's hand and arm from the radiant heat. And just in case I didn't mention this to you guys, but whenever we have a visiting artist, we always have our resident hot shop team here as well, so our full-time hot shop team. And they will help bring these pieces to life, essentially. So we can have visiting artists that come through that have very little or sometimes even no experience working with glass at all. But we are able to bring their designs or maybe even incorporate some of their physical pieces into glass through the hands of our talented team. Yeah, usually when you see us letting the glass cool down like this, and we have kind of this perfect, shiny, tapered, round shape, kind of like a Q-tip shape, we're usually letting it cool down so that we can gather another layer of clear glass over it. So I'm assuming we'll gather some clear glass in just a second. I think that's what they were talking about earlier. Yeah, possibly layering like two patterns on one piece. And if not, then they're just laying some patterning out for the next piece early. But oh yeah, this is where we're getting all of our clear molten glass. So this tank sits at just about 2100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we just have clear glass inside of here specifically. That bucket that we just dripped glass into is specifically clear glass only, so we eventually reuse it by throwing it back into the furnace. And this is a large piece of glass, so we're cooling the pipe down almost immediately in the pipe cooler, just a trough of water. And could we get a view of Lonnie working on his design? Thank you. So we have a view up on the screen of, Lonnie laying out this powder and sculpting it with various tools. So with this glass at the center bench, We've heated it up, we've lengthened it into more of a cylindrical shape, and this will let us pick up that design more evenly across the entire surface of the bubble. We'll just heat this up, and then we'll bring it over and pick up that pattern. Yeah, we have this silver box over here as well. I'll point out how we use that in just a second. After we pick up our pattern, which, can we have a view of this on the screen? Thank you. So we have a view of them picking up the pattern, both on the floor and on the screen. Now this silver box, we've just gone over here and we've probably picked up a piece of color on the end of a smaller pipe, and we'll basically melt this down and eventually use it for the entire piece overall, basically the base color. You could think of it like that. We have a bunch of pieces of this color down here on the front table. It's called color bar. We get this stuff shipped in, basically just attach it to the end of our pipe and then melt it until it's a blob. And then we also have all the bags of powder down here as well. So the way that I always describe the newspaper is it's basically as close as we're going to get to shaping the glass with our hands, because it conforms to the shape of our hands, and then the glass will conform to the shape of the papers. But yeah, it's just a shaping tool. Yeah. Also, the reason we would use these different types of heating, because I get a lot of questions about that as well. The torch we use to heat up sections of the glass. In this case, we're heating up the area near the pipe, and then we're blowing out the area near the pipe quite a bit. And then we have to give the entire thing kind of a general heat every once in a while. So we're going back in, we're heating up the whole thing. But they do run around the same temperature, 21 to 2300 degrees Fahrenheit. And now we get started on something very important called the jack line. So we're squeezing down with the jacks, these two metal blades, and we're basically creating a divot or this purposeful weak point that we eventually break the piece off from. We do this for all pieces, blown, sculptural, everything. And welcome to those who just joined in. Hi. I'll just give a quick general overview to catch you guys up a little bit. So we have a visiting artist on the hot shop floor today, and he is up in the front, sitting in the chair on the right, and he's working on these kind of found object sculptures. He's improvising some art, and we're seeing him work on some pieces in the hot shop this week. So this is a full week residency. It started yesterday. It'll go all the way through tomorrow. And the pieces that we've been working on yesterday and today are using some designs that Lonnie has laid out and then actually drawn into this powdered colored glass. And we've picked 2 layers of these designs up on this piece in particular, which we're just now starting to blow out and shape into its final shape. Now, our visiting artist has his home studio in Atlanta, Georgia, so he's visiting from a little bit of a distance. And again, he works with a lot of mixed media, a lot of found objects. And let's see his slideshow up on the screen. So up on the screen, there's going to be a slideshow going, showing off some of our visiting artists' previously made work. You'll kind of get an idea of how some of these pieces may be used, or how these pieces in the hot shop are inspired by his previous works. Now, something I've been pointing out, because I think it's really cool, Lonnie had a concert in Seattle last night, so he's a music artist as well, very multi-talented. Thank you. So for those who just joined in or joined in more recently, welcome into the Hot Shop. I'm going to give a quick introduction as to who we have here and what we have going on. We have a lot of excitement on the Hot Shop floor since this is a really big piece of glass, and you guys are all in awe, and it's awesome. Now, this piece is designed by our visiting artist, Lonnie Holley, and he's the one who's sitting up in the front on the right side here. He's actually working with some copper wiring right now. He's bending it around these found objects, and this is what he does at his home studio quite a bit in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's coming all the way from Atlanta, Georgia to work in the Hot Shop, and this is, I think he said, his 5th piece of glass in general. So he doesn't usually work in the Hot Shop, which a lot of people find surprising. We have visiting artists that don't necessarily work with glass all the time coming through. But we have a full-time Hot Shop team that works in here, and they help the visiting artists that come through bring those designs to life. So our visiting artist comes in with designs and ideas of what they want to make. And today, luckily, we still kind of have this laid out in the back. Lonnie has been drawing in some powdered colored glass and basically creating like a negative space and a positive space, which we then roll up onto the outside of a bubble of glass. So we have 2 layers of his design on this piece laid out. And right now it's hard to see the true colors of the glass. When this cools down, I know that there's going to be layers of, it looks like that might be an orange, and then earlier we picked up like a yellow and a green, and then the base color of this piece, I think it might be an orange as well, but we'll see. So So I was just asking what's going to be done with these pieces when they're finished with them in the Hot Shop. That's something that's really important to know and share with the audience. Now, with these pieces, apparently they're going to be putting holes in them, which we'll use on a later date to continue the sculpture, the mixed media kind of found object sculpting will be built off of these pieces, with these pieces as the base. That process we just saw that I was kind of talking over, this is really important. We basically attach a second pipe somewhere to the piece, usually the bottom when it's a blown piece, and then we break it off of its first pipe. And what this does is it flips the orientation of the piece. We're just working on the opposite side now. But yeah, so these pieces will be mixed with other medias on a later date by Lonnie himself. He'll take them back home to his studio. So we'll use this later on, but the boxes on our far walls, these are called annealers, and the annealer is basically just going to stay at about 900 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the day. We load finished pieces inside of it, and then eventually when we're done, we press a button, and it's programmed to cool very slowly for about 12 hours or so. So it's just a really controlled cooling process to prevent thermal shock. So the center bench, we opened this up slightly and we were just kind of rounding the lip off. And we have some color that we've been preparing over on the right bench that we'll bring over and attach to the lip of the piece. It's called a lip wrap. Basically just a pop of color just around the opening of the piece. And it sounds like in just a second, Lonnie's going to be showing off a piece that he's been working on since this morning with the found objects and the copper wire.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for here. You all are here to see our production. Uh, Me as an artist, I think the world belongs to us, and it's good to be able to collaborate, especially with something as exciting as glass work. That's some hot stuff. That's really some hot stuff. But what I'm holding in my hand is actually what I made since I've been here, off of some pieces that I found here. And I'm going to let you all hold it and pass it around. And each one of you all are going to get a chance to take a real close look at it. And when it get to the end person, if you all want to walk around where you can see this piece a little bit closer, examination, please do. But this is what I do with anything. I try to make found objects out of it. In the clear bag were some of the leftover glass that was in the bag. I brought some jewelry and stuff along with me from various antique shops. I break down and remake jewelry. You can see the copper face that's on there. There's a copper face of a woman, and in her head is all of this beautiful stuff going on. And I gave you one of the pieces. Yes, please. You can take a photo of it if you would like to do so. Along on that piece is some of the paper that what he take and wipe that hot, burning situation with. I this morning I'm totally inspired, but the enhancement I think comes from we must teach others that we can do anything. If we choose to work with something, the only thing we need to do is focus on it and we can get it done. Mama had 27 of us, 27 children out of 32 pregnancies. And I am that her art child. And you all can see what art do for you. Not only do it lift you up when you're down, but it carries you way, way, way around the world, that is. Because my art has taken me around the world and let my works be put in different museums and different galleries. I always like to give thanks to William Arnett, the person that started my art career in Atlanta, Georgia, but also found objects and materials such as you're looking at and what you're going to see on the screen. I think you can show on the screen in a minute, right? Because you can see some of my other works on the screen. Or you can Google my works and you can YouTube the works of music that I do. Thank you all very much for being and enjoy your investigation.
So I think they're pretty happy with how this piece is looking. Usually you'll see them start to torch that connection between the piece and the pipe, and then we'll start to break it off. And this is usually done with a little bit of water and a tap of the pipe. That water will thermally shock and crack that connection enough to break the piece off. And this will be the first piece of the day. Yeah, to put this piece away, we usually carry it over to one of the annealers with a pair of Kevlar gloves. And I think part of the reason we break the piece off at the bench instead of just breaking it off right over where we put it away, so that we can use these torches, kind of heal any cracks that appear, and just kind of finish off the bottom if need be. So now we will apply that water and crack that connection. And then with the tap of the pipe, let's give them a round of applause for finishing that piece. Thank you, everyone. And again, this is the first piece of the day, and it was successful. It's put away. Now we won't see it again until tomorrow once it's cooled down. Now, earlier Lonnie was mentioning he wanted to show off that slideshow of his, so could we have it up on the screen, please? Thank you. So up on the screen, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, this is the slideshow of Lonnie's previously made artwork. Yes, so when it comes to hot shop glass or, glass blowing, Lonnie had a residency at Pilchuck recently, which is a glass school 2 hours north. And so he's worked in glass there, but this is still kind of like his 5th piece of glass ever. So it's still very new to him. Yeah. And I make sure to mention, since there's some new people here and there, when we have visiting artists come through, like our visiting artist today, they don't necessarily have to be an expert in glass blowing, because we have a team that works here full time, and it looks like Lonnie brought in some people of his own to help him out as well. And these people basically take the artist's designs, inspirations, and they translate it into the glass. So earlier, Lonnie was working with the powdered colored glass that you see on that table in the back there. And he was actually creating negative and positive spaces with the powdered glass, which we then rolled up onto the finished piece or finished bubble. We have a view of this on the screen. You can see where we rolled the bubble of glass over top of it to pick it up. And these colors are going to be really hard to see when we're working with the glass. So the piece we just finished looked almost kind of brown, but it had a layer of red and then green and yellow and then another layer of red over top of that. So it's going to be really colorful when it's finished. So when we have these visiting artist residencies, we always have an artist talk or an artist lecture on Sunday where the artist comes up, they take the mic, which he's already done, but he's going to talk even further in depth about, his background and, his inspirations behind his work. This is all going to happen Sunday at about 1 p.m., but if you can't make it to that, or tomorrow when these finished pieces come out, for example, we live stream every single day that we're down on the hot shop floor. So what you see on the screen and what you hear coming off of my microphone, those are all on the live stream. Yeah, on YouTube or on our website. Yeah, so we worked with glass yesterday too. Yesterday was the first day of Lonnie's residency, and it looks like they're looking at the pieces that were made yesterday and just seeing how they turned out. I think this is their first glimpse of them since they went in there. I heard that they made one piece kind of similar to what we just saw finished yesterday, where they layered on the powder designs that Lonnie made. Also, feel free to come down and take a closer look at the sculpture that Lonnie created earlier. I know a lot of you got to actually hold it yourselves and take a closer look, but it does look really cool with the light underneath it. So feel free to take pictures and walk around. And this is a continuous demonstration, so looks like we're getting started on the next piece already. I am not sure when you guys joined in, but Lonnie took the mic earlier and he was describing the found art that he does. So he we'll take these found objects and he turns them into sculptures like this one right here. And he's going to be doing that with the finished pieces in the hot shop as well. So the cylinder that we just created is basically going to be a base to his next sculpture. He'll put things inside of it and then coming out, maybe coming around, but it's going to be some sort of base to his next piece. So this is the very beginning to all processes. We start with only clear glass on the end of our pipe, and basically we have to build this layer upon layer. So we started with this big of a piece of glass. It's called a gather, one gather, and then this is the second gather. Kind of measure things in gathers. And if you were to cut this and kind of look at the cross section, you'd see almost tree-like rings of glass. Especially if we had layers of color, it'd be even more obvious. And for those who haven't gotten an overview of the hot shop, this is, of course, where we've been getting the glass in the first place. The glass furnace sits at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's just a large ceramic bowl filled with clear molten glass. Oh yeah. We blew that bubble right in the beginning after the first gather. And then basically each time we gather a layer of clear, we smooth the new glass out with the block, this wooden spoon-shaped tool, and then we expand the bubble each time just a little bit as well. So you'll probably see her blow into the end of the pipe at some point. So you can see the bubble has grown in size. I think if we keep it too small and we keep gathering layer after layer of clear, it gets really hard to blow it out eventually. And this also keeps the bubble even. On either side of the hot shop, we have pipe coolers, just a trough of water that we set the pipe into. So that's where Ben is at right now. And welcome to those who just joined us in the hot shop. I'll give you guys an introduction as to who we have here and what we have going on. So we have a visiting artist. He's actually sitting up in the front working on sculpting with this copper metal wire. His name is Lonnie Holley. And he's here for a full week residency, which started just yesterday and will go all the way through Sunday. And we're going to be working on various blown pieces of glass, which he'll eventually turn into kind of mixed media sculptures, which we have an example of right here on the front pedestal. This one he created this morning in just an hour and a half, just about. So he uses found objects. These ones are found objects specifically from the hot shop. Like this is a piece of kiln shelf or kiln brick. And then this is a piece of newspaper that they use to like shape the glass. And then this I think is filled with glass, this bag right here. So just a bunch of found items from the hot shop. And he's turned it into a sculpture. So that's what he usually does at his home studio in Atlanta, Georgia. He's come out here to make a bunch of blown pieces to build off of and create more mixed media sculptures. Now, he's also a music artist, and he went and played a show in Seattle last night. So he's keeping himself busy. He's a very multi-talented artist. And yeah, we've already started the next piece in the hot shop, as well as the next mixed media piece right here. So up in the front here, we have this box that we will preheat pieces of glass up to, depending on what the need is, like 900 or 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And it looks like we've prepared a clear bubble of glass that we'll eventually bring up and we'll stuff inside of another piece of glass previously made and then preheated in there to pick it up. This is what we did for the last piece, basically to get a base color for the entire blown piece. So the piece that we finished just before you guys came in, or before a lot of you guys came in, was a large blown glass cylinder. And on the cylinder, we had a couple of layers of designing that Lonnie created out of powdered colored glass. You'll probably see us do this again at some point in the day, but we lay a bunch of powdered colored glass coming from these bags onto a table. And then Lonnie will go in and create negative spaces with different tools, and then we roll that design up on a hot bubble of glass to pick it up. And this cylinder, it sounds like we may be building kind of this cage for it. So in the back, we're gathering one more layer of clear glass over top of this bubble. This is after letting the bubble cool down to a certain extent, so we have a solid core. So up in the front, once we had this bubble hot enough, we bring it over and we stuff it inside of that cup. And could we have a view of Lonnie drawing in the back? So I wanted to make sure to get a shot of this. It's a little bit hard to see because the colors kind of blend together with the table, but this is Lonnie sitting in the back. He's using a paintbrush, and I've seen him also use things like a pencil, and I'm trying to see what that is on the table next to him. Maybe a spoon, to push this glass around and create these powder designs that we pick up on the finished piece. Yeah, you could think back to when you're maybe like a kid at the beach and you take a stick and you're like drawing in the sand, right? So this is kind of similar feeling. The powdered glass is a very similar texture to sand. It's completely dry. But when we roll the molten glass over top of it, it's going to heat up some of those particles of glass so much that they stick to the surface of the piece. So that's how we're applying it to our finished piece. And as of right now, here at the center bench with this cup of white glass, we're just making sure that it's completely contoured to the bubble. It's just completely smooth and flat and even. So we roll it on the marver, this metal table, to get it to the correct shape. So the color laid out on the table is just black. Yeah, just a black powdered glass, which is why it blends in so well. And usually when you look at these colors like this right here on the table or in these bags, the rule is kind of what you see is what you get. So you can go to these glass stores or look online and if you see a color that you like, you order it. It's going to turn out that color in the end, even if it looks different while we're working with it in the hot shop. Oh yeah, and some of these are transparent colors, I assume. Actually, no, these are all black, but sometimes transparent colors can be so dark that they basically look black, and then you hold it up to the light and you can see through it. But yeah, these are all just black, white, gray, blue, yellow. So we took the bubble of glass, we rolled it on the table again to get more of a cylindrical shape. And what this does is it just makes sure that the pattern, when we're rolling over top of it, connects to more of the surface of the bubble. If the bubble was round, then it would just connect on that little edge that's touching the table and nothing else. So we heat this up one more time, and then we go over to pick up our pattern in the back. And we have a good view of this on the screen as well. Let's see how it picks up. So up on the screen, you could see the negative spaces and the positive spaces of this black powdered glass. And then we heat this up again to make sure that it permanently sticks and is basically just part of the glass bubble now. So now we're just letting this sit and cool down. And I get questions about how the artists tell how hot something is. They can look at the color, oftentimes. If there's any glow to it, they know that there's still heat. But in this case, I think that they're mostly just waiting for it to stop moving. And then they know that it'll be solid enough to move on to the next step. Now, the reason we're letting this cool down a bit is we're going to be gathering another layer of clear glass over top of it. And this will do a couple things. It's going to cover up that layer of black directly on the surface of the piece, which means that it won't be able to react with the flame and get oxidized or reduced. It also will not be on the surface of the piece, which means any chips or anything will never be noticeable. But yeah, this tank in the back with the closed door, for those who just joined in, this is where we get all of our clear molten glass. It sits at 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. So we usually let the glass cool down before going in, so that way everything doesn't start immediately moving around like crazy when we come out. We have a solid core. And this is our visiting artist up in the front right here. And this is Lonnie Holley. And Lonnie is here for a full residency starting yesterday, going all the way through Sunday. And he makes pieces kind of like you're seeing right here on the front pedestal. This is one that he made this morning using found objects. So he's a mixed media or multimedia artist. And he's very multi-talented because he is also a music artist. He just had a show last night in Seattle. Busy guy. Now, we will see him use these finished pieces of glass in these sculptures in the future. He's going to build off of them, build inside of them, build upon them. And could I have Lonnie's slideshow, please? So for those who just joined in, I wanted to make sure to show off some of his previously made artwork, just so you could get a taste of the finished products and how he might use these blown pieces of glass incorporated in his sculptures. Now, his gallery and homes in Atlanta, Georgia, so artists will come a bit of ways away to get here. We even have international artists come by. And visiting artists that come through don't necessarily have to work with glass as much as some of you may think. Some people that come in, they've worked with glass a little bit, or maybe they're experts, or maybe they have never worked with glass at all. So we have a pretty mixed amount of those people that come through. And our team that works here full time, they take the designs that our visiting artist has and they bring them to life. With the visiting artist on the floor, they can check in throughout the process and make sure that it's turning out exactly as they want it. And I believe that this is part of the sculpture for a piece that we made earlier. We made a blown cylinder of glass that's going to kind of sit inside of this. Thank you. And feel free to ask any questions that you guys have. Just grab my attention and let me know. I can answer questions about the visiting artists or about the glass. Yeah, even so this piece of glass is hollow already, which makes it a lot lighter. But even when we're working with an amount that's like 10 pounds or so, it feels a lot heavier than it actually is just because of the leverage it has against you all the way on the end of the pipe. And then the pipe itself does weigh something too, usually like 10 to 15 pounds. Yeah, you guys are lucky. This is one of the very few artists who actually pass his work around for you guys to see. Usually artists don't even want like other artists touching their work. It's like only them can touch their work. So this is kind of cool. And for those in the back who maybe didn't hear this explanation, this piece was made yesterday. And this is a blown piece of glass, a cup. And this is a piece of copper wire that was attached or embedded, and then a blown bubble of glass applied over top to appear like saran wrap. It's supposed to look kind of like a saran wrap piece of glass. And copper is one of the few metals that you can put into glass that's not going to break the glass, because as it heats and cools at a similar rate as glass itself, so it'll expand and contract at a similar rate. It's very conductive. Versus something like steel, if you embed that in glass, the glass will just crack around it. And I've seen artists try to work with steel before, and it almost always happens. So yeah, just something interesting. Physics, chemistry. Yeah, you'll also see artists work with a lot of like gold leaf and silver leaf as well. So this piece of the center bench has been blown out quite a bit already. We usually use this pad of newspaper to guide which way it's blowing out. But yeah, it's just folded up newspaper. We splash some water on it. It's good to go. This torch we use to heat up sections of the glass at a time versus heating up the entire thing overall, which can help us expand the bubble more in this area specifically. It's a little bit colder. Also, this divot or line that we squeezed in off the end of the pipe, it's not necessarily part of the design, but this is the jack line, and this just allows us to break the piece off of the pipe. Yeah, as for what these pieces are going to end up being for the final product, these are going to eventually be sculptures themselves. And I've been referencing this right here on the front pedestal quite a bit because this was made this morning by our visiting artist. But this is one of his mixed media sculptures using found objects. And that's what's going to be done with these finished pieces of glass. The glass is going to be like a base to build upon. So the sculpture is going to be maybe on the inside coming out of this cylinder of glass or maybe wrapping around. We'll see how our visiting artist uses these in the end, but they're going to turn into mixed media sculptures. So far, it is looking like this will be another cylinder, or at least cylindrical shaped piece of glass. And again, just to emphasize, this is hollow all the way through right now. It's like a big cup of glass, essentially. So now that we've finished the lower half of the cylinder, we're gonna let that stay kind of cold. Cold for glass is 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we'll bring over another pipe with some clear glass on the end and attach this to the bottom of the piece, just so that we can break the piece off of the pipe it's on right now. And welcome into the hot shop to those who just joined in. Hi, welcome. I'm just going to give a quick introduction to you guys as to what we have going on, who we have here. So we have a visiting artist today, Lonnie Holley, and he's the one up in the front sitting and working with this copper wiring. And this is eventually going to be used with some of the blown glass that we're seeing made in the hot shop. So if we could have our visiting artist slideshow on the screen, please. Lonnie works and lives in Atlanta, Georgia, making these mixed media sculptures with lots of found objects. And he actually created a found object sculpture this morning, which we see right here on the front pedestal. You guys are welcome to come and take a closer look at any finished pieces that we put on these. This one was made yesterday. This one was made this morning. So yeah, just to describe some of this stuff, this is like a piece of kiln brick that we would get from the inside of one of these furnaces. And then this actually has shards or pieces of glass inside of it, this bag. And then this is a piece of newspaper that we would use to like shape the piece of glass at the bench. So all of these objects were maybe discarded or set aside, and Lonnie picked them up and incorporated them into his artwork. And this is something that he does on the daily. And he's a multi-talented artist. He also creates music. He had a concert in Seattle last night before coming here again today to work on more glass. And this residency is going to go on all the way through Sunday, making various pieces of glass that he can eventually incorporate into or kind of build off of, create these mixed media sculptures. And we just did something really important. We attached a pipe to the bottom of our piece, broke the piece off of the first pipe, just so we could start working on the opposite side of the piece now. And I know a lot of you joined in more recently, so I'll point out a couple of important pieces of equipment. The place that we're heating up the glass in right now, this is called the glory hole. It runs around 21 to 2300 degrees Fahrenheit. And we turn these off whenever we're done using them at the end of the day, and then turn them on maybe an hour or so before we get started. The tank with the closed door to the right of where we're working, this is the glass furnace. This is where we're getting all of our molten clear glass. And we have to apply color through various ways, one of which is using powdered colored glass, which is something that we're doing to get all the designs on the surface of our piece, or using color bar, which are these solid bars of colored glass like this. This is black. We have white, blue, gray. Basically what you see is what you get when it comes to glass color. So this building does have a story. It's not built necessarily because it's like the perfect shape for a hot shop or anything like that, but it's built with the area's history in mind. So this area used to be used for a lot of logging purposes. They would float logs down the waterway right here. They would burn leftover wood scraps in these large wood burners, shaped just like this cone along the waterway. Here's an example right up on the screen. This is a wigwam burner or beehive burner. And basically these dotted along the waterway, but eventually when they stopped using the area for logging purposes as much, they demolished those cones, they cleaned up the waterway, they built the Bridge of Glass and the Museum of Glass. And so this is a building almost kind of paying tribute to the area's history and what it used to be. And that is the shape. Now, it's also tilted on its side a little bit to give us some more floor space. You can kind of test this out yourselves as well. If you just bend one elbow out, you can see how much more space that gives us. And it's very shiny. It's very shiny just to stand out. Oh yeah, over on the right bench, if you're curious about what we have going on over there, we've taken a piece of colored glass starting as one of these bars. We have attached it to the end of our pipe. We're heating this up. We'll bring it over and we'll wrap it around just the opening of the piece, creating something called a lip wrap. Basically just a little pop of color around the rim or the opening of a piece. So we bring our color over, we just lightly touch it down on the opening, and then as we turn the pipe, this follows all the way around and creates our lip wrap. And you can see how drastically the color changes. So when we were working with that color, it's completely molten. It looked kind of like this reddish orange or maybe even brown at some points. But then as it cools, it looks like it's turning like a banana yellow or something. So after the piece is removed from the blowpipe, which was the pipe it was attached to earlier, there's usually not really a way to expand the piece of glass anymore. But with this cone-shaped tool, the cone blocks off the opening to the piece. You reinflate it by blowing into the opposite end. It's called the soffietta, which I think it means a little puff in Italian. It's a classic tool that we use to reinflate the piece of glass. Now, for everyone who's just joined in, I'll give a quick introduction as to who we have here and what we have going on real quick, just to catch you guys up. But we are almost finished with this piece of glass right here. This is designed by our visiting artist today, Lonnie Holley, and he's the one sitting up in the front working with this large copper wire structure that he's making. And he's here for a full residency starting yesterday, going all the way through Sunday. And he works with a lot of mixed media art. Using this copper wire, he's able to take found objects and incorporate or attach all of these individual pieces together. A lot of this is from the hot shop itself. This bag has some broken pieces of glass in it. This is a piece of kiln brick from the inside of one of our furnaces, and then this is a piece of newspaper that we would use to actually shape the pieces of glass at the bench. So these are all incorporated together to create this finished piece. You guys are welcome to take a closer look at these. This was made yesterday as well, also using copper wire. Now these bigger blown pieces of glass in the hot shop, these are being made. Eventually, Lonnie is going to build off of them to create even larger mixed media sculptures from found objects. So this is the second cylinder we've made today, right here, the center bench. The way that this is created is we create a bubble of glass, and this has, to put it very simply, a layer of white glass very close to the surface of the bubble. The way that we get our glass is we start with clear, and we just build layer upon layer, almost like tree rings. And then on top of this, we picked up a layer of powdered black glass. This was laid out on a table, and then Lonnie, our visiting artist himself, he actually went in with a paintbrush and pencils and different tools to carve away these empty spaces. And then when we pick that powder up on the surface of the glass, we end up with this pattern. And to finish this cylinder off, we use this setup on the table. This is a large wooden board with wet newspaper laid over top, and the idea is to kind of apply an even pressure across the entire surface of the piece all at once. So this is going to straighten out the piece as straight as it can possibly get. We do this for cylinders and for cones, anything that has to have those straight walls. Yeah, so I was watching and kind of waiting to see what they would do with that heat, but they were heating up the middle of the cylinder over and over again. And then they just finally heated it up one more time, enough that it started to collapse and kind of warp on itself. And this is purposeful, it's part of the design. Yeah, this is done in a really controlled way. If they blow out a piece too thin, then it could collapse on itself if they get it too hot. You know, we just have to wait for it to cool down properly again to put it away. Oh yeah, you guys haven't seen this one yet, but yeah, this piece of glass was made yesterday. It's a cup, and there's actually a little piece of copper wire embedded in the surface of the glass, and they blew a bubble of clear glass over top of it to look almost like saran wrap. Yeah, so I have been expressing this is really cool, but this visiting artist who's here with us for this residency, it's very rare that they do this, but they have been passing their finished pieces around for everyone to look at. So this was made yesterday, this cup of glass. And you can pass it behind you if the people behind you would like to look at it. Yeah, they were passing this piece around earlier, so I'll just continue on that. Ooh, it looks like we're attaching marbles to the outside of this piece. Yep, so at this point we're preparing to break it off by torching the glass connecting the piece to the pipe and torching any possible weak spots. So right where that marble's connected, for example, could be considered a weak spot. We'll give it a little extra heat, and then we'll just apply some water near the end of the pipe. That's going to crack that connection enough for it to just pop right off. Yeah, the glass is relatively cold at this point. About 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit is cold for glass. And here we go with the water. These Kevlar gloves will be used to carry it over to the annealer. With the tap of the pipe, this piece should be done. And let's give them a round of applause for finishing that piece. And off into the annealer it goes. So it's going to rest in here, cool down overnight or about 12 hours, and we'll see that piece again tomorrow. So that's the second piece of the day. We've made 2 large blown cylinders like that now. And for those who haven't seen it yet, we'll have the slideshow going on the screen for a minute. And there was somebody that was asking about the pieces out in the Grand Hall. So if anyone else is interested about these like large, almost like paperweight pieces with really intricate flowers, we have a video on how these are made and the artist that makes them. If we could have that on the screen, please.
And the narrowest hinge of my hand puts to scorn all machinery. This sentence is from one of Walt Whitman's most respected poems, Song of Myself. I'm Paul Stankard. I'd like to share with you the process and techniques that I have both perfected and developed. These techniques have enabled me to create this glass orb that I have titled
And we have it turned up just a tad.
The process that I use to create my botanical art, it's called flame working. And here I'm taking commercially available colored glasses, melting them into what I call material preparation. Here I'm making the green glass rods to press out leaves for the design. When I'm focusing on a blossom, I take advantage of colored glasses rolled into powder glasses, and that gives me a variety of shades. Here I'm focusing on the blossom. I'm taking the lip of the blossom and sealing sepals and petals onto the lip. And by heating the petals and shaping it, I'm developing a Paphiopedilum orchid. Once I have the blossom finished, I put it in an annealing oven and anneal it at 975 Fahrenheit so that it becomes stable. When I flame worked all the components, I bring them to the hot plate on my bench, and by keeping it hot with a Bunsen burner underneath, I attach the botanical components into the design. Once the components are finished into a design, I bring it to a pickup oven where it is going to be encapsulated in clear glass. My assistant is preheating clear glass to be dropped onto the colored glass design and encapsulate the orchids. We repeat the process with 2 halves sealed together and shaping it into the final orb. In the studio, I take advantage of 2 heat sources, the glory hole and the gas oxygen bench burner. The heat involved is upwards of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, shaping the glass into a sphere. By putting two halves together, I'm able to suggest the design is 360 degrees. Magnification plays an important role in the presentation of the design. Once the orb is shaped, it goes into the oven to anneal for 40 hours. Once the glass is annealed, it's then ground and polished to be finished.
Thank you. So that is lunch. Yeah, we'll be back at about 2 p.m. We'll have the exact return time on the screen. And thanks for coming in.